You've never actually seen the world in real time. Every color, every motion, every face you think you see is already gone by the time you're actually seeing it. It is processed, delayed, and reconstructed inside your brain. When light hits your eyes, 80 milliseconds pass before you see anything at all. Yet your mind edits that delay out, giving you the illusion of now. That means you live inside a prediction, a story your brain tells to keep you oriented. And this story feels so consistent, so vivid, that you'd swear it's reality itself. But what if the world you see is less like a window and more like a mirror? Look closer. The blue of the sky isn't in the sky itself. It's an interpretation created by your brain. The voice you hear in your head isn't a narrator. It's a translator. Every sensation is filtered through layers of expectation, memory, and emotion. You're not observing reality. You're generating it. And that's the quiet shock most people never recover from. Because once you realize perception is a controlled hallucination, you start to wonder who's doing the controlling, and if every sight, thought, and feeling passes through hidden filters. What remains when all of them fall away? That question isn't just philosophical, it's personal. The layers that shape your perception also shape your suffering. They tell you who you are, what's possible, and what's off limits. But when those layers begin to dissolve, something extraordinary happens. The world doesn't vanish. It comes alive. In the next few minutes, you'll descend through 7 hidden layers of perception. From the raw senses that deceive you, to the cultural and egoic lenses that define your entire reality. By the end, you won't just understand these layers. You'll start to see them. You don't need new beliefs to understand this. Only the courage to notice what's already happening behind your eyes. Keep watching, because reality is about to show you how it builds itself, and how, in every moment, it disappears. If that kind of inquiry resonates, please subscribe. Let's dive in. Close your eyes for a moment. The world you think you're leaving behind, the room, the light, the sounds, doesn't actually vanish. It simply stops being rendered. When you open them again, your brain rushes to rebuild everything from electrical signals and prior expectations. What you see is not reality. It's a masterpiece of biological guesswork. Your eyes capture a stream of photons, but that raw data is meaningless until your brain interprets it. Color doesn't exist in the outside world. It's the brain translating wavelengths into emotion-coded experiences. Red isn't out there on the rose. It's in here, in the neural language of sensation. The same goes for sound. Pressure waves sculpted by the ear into what we call music or words. Every note, every image, every texture is an internal painting, projected outward. Neuroscience calls this predictive processing. Your brain is constantly guessing what it's about to perceive and correcting those guesses on the fly. It doesn't wait for perfect information. It creates the most likely version of the world and edits the errors fast enough that you never notice. Reality, as you experience it, is an agreement between expectation and sensation. That's why illusions work. The spinning dancer that flips direction, the checkerboard where 2 squares of the same color look different. These aren't tricks. They're windows into how perception edits truth for coherence. Your brain would rather be consistent than accurate. It fills in blanks, smooths over delays, and invents continuity to protect the illusion of a stable world. Even time itself gets adjusted. You don't see events as they happen, but as they should have happened a fraction of a second ago. You're living slightly behind, in a world that's always already processed. So when you look around, you're not seeing reality. You're seeing neural art, shaped by millions of micro-decisions your brain made without your consent. And once you know that, something shifts. You begin to wonder how much of what you've ever experienced was truly out there, and how much was painted by the mind within. Because if even the raw, physical world is a construction, what happens when emotion and memory start to sculpt it too? Think of the last time you walked into a familiar place after an argument. Nothing in the room had changed. The same walls, the same light. But everything felt different. The air seemed heavy, the colors dimmer, as if the world itself had absorbed your mood. Hours later, the same space might suddenly feel warm again, alive. The world didn't shift. You did. Emotion is not a reaction to what we see. It's the lens that determines what we see. Affective neuroscience shows that before perception even reaches consciousness, The body has already decided what kind of world to expect. The heart rate changes, the amygdala tunes attention, and the brain predicts sensations that match the emotion you're already feeling. Fear sharpens edges. Joy softens them. Sadness mutes color. Every feeling rewrites the sensory script. This is why memory and emotion are inseparable. The past you recall is not a fixed record. It's a reconstruction tinted by the emotion you feel right now. That's why two people can live through the same moment and remember entirely different realities. The emotional layer bends light differently for each observer. Spiritual traditions have known this for centuries. In Buddhism, emotions are called kleshas, mental veils that distort clear seeing. They're not moral flaws. They're filters. Anger, desire, fear. They project their own world and then convince us it's real. Modern psychology simply gives that process new names: emotional valence, attentional bias, selective perception, different languages, same mechanism. The deeper truth is unsettling but freeing. There's no neutral perception. There never was. Every experience you've ever had was flavored by the state of your nervous system. You don't observe the world, you feel it into being. And once that's understood, reality becomes strangely compassionate. When someone lashes out, they're not seeing what you see. They're trapped inside a mood-shaped universe. When you're lost in despair, you're not failing to see clearly. You're seeing perfectly through the lens of that emotion. But if feeling sculpts reality, then thought gives it form. What happens when the mind starts telling stories about what those feelings mean? When the emotional lens merges with the narrative voice that calls itself me? The mind is a storyteller that never stops talking. It interprets, compares, and narrates everything you perceive, weaving a constant inner dialogue that claims to know what's happening and why. Without it, reality would be a silent stream of sensations. With it, life becomes a movie, and you're cast as the main character. This story feels so natural that we rarely question it, but cognitive science reveals that much of what we think is interpretation, not observation. The brain builds mental templates, schemas, for how the world works. These frameworks decide what counts as important, what gets ignored, and what fits our existing beliefs. You don't just see reality, you see your expectations projected onto it. The default mode network, the brain's internal narrator, ensures the story never stops. It's what keeps your sense of identity stitched together, replaying memories, simulating futures, and maintaining the illusion of a continuous me. Even when you rest, it hums beneath consciousness, editing reality so you always appear at the center. That's why two people can look at the same event and walk away with opposite truths. Each lives inside a personalized version of the world, an echo chamber of thoughts filtered through memory, belief, and bias. And this isn't a flaw. It's how the mind maintains coherence. The story protects the storyteller. Philosophers sensed this long before neuroscience could measure it. Kant called it the phenomenal world, the reality shaped by the structures of mind, not by things as they truly are. We never encounter the noumenal, the raw essence of what exists. We encounter our brain's organized simulation of it. But something interesting happens when that inner voice quiets. During deep meditation, flow, or even shock, the DMN relaxes. The story fades, and for a moment, perception becomes raw again. The world feels vivid, immediate, unfiltered. You aren't a character watching the movie. You're the screen itself. That glimpse is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying, because without the story, there's no one left to control it. Liberating, because the silence beneath thought is vast, and it doesn't need control at all. But the story doesn't end in the mind. It's shared, reinforced, and magnified by the collective. The next layer isn't personal, it's cultural. The one that convinces billions to dream the same dream and call it reality. Every mind lives inside a story, but no story is created in isolation. Before you ever spoke your first word, the collective had already written the script. Language, customs, beliefs, all inherited lenses through which you'd come to interpret the world. You didn't choose your reality. You were born into one already under construction. Language itself is the invisible architect. It doesn't just describe reality, it divides it. Some cultures have dozens of words for what others call snow. Some see time flowing east to west, others in circles. Studies show that people literally perceive the world differently depending on the structure of their language. Every noun, every verb, every definition, quietly draws the borders of what's real. Culture then builds on top of those linguistic foundations. It tells you what success means, what beauty looks like, what to fear, what to worship. It programs emotional responses into symbols, a flag, a cross, a brand logo, that bypass logic and speak straight to the nervous system. And the more people agree on a symbol, the more powerful the illusion becomes. This is how the shared dream sustains itself. Billions of personal hallucinations, aligning just enough to overlap. We call this overlap the world. But beneath it, each of us is still living inside a private translation of existence. Time is the final piece that holds the illusion together. Your mind stitches moments into sequence, creating the sense of a continuous life, moving from past to future. Yet physics whispers that all moments coexist, and mystics say that linear time is the mind's greatest fiction. The brain, eager for narrative, takes scattered flashes of memory and prediction and edits them into a single flowing movie. That's why you feel like a character moving through time, rather than awareness watching time appear and vanish. Einstein once remarked that the distinction between past, present, and future is a persistent illusion, one stubborn enough to keep us sane. But what if sanity itself depends on a shared hallucination? Because when culture and time dissolve, the personal story has nowhere left to hide, and what remains beneath the collective dream is something far more intimate than identity, the awareness that's been quietly watching all of it unfold. Beneath the cultural dream waits the final illusion, the one that dreams you. It's the voice that claims ownership of every thought. I did this, I felt that, I am me. It feels permanent, solid, irrefutable. Yet neuroscience shows that the sense of self is less an entity and more an event, a flickering pattern the brain constructs to organize experience. Inside the default mode network, memories, preferences, and goals are constantly stitched together into a coherent narrator. When that network goes quiet, through meditation, deep flow, or psychedelics, the narrator dissolves, but perception doesn't stop. In fact, it expands. There's seeing without a seer, hearing without a hearer. Awareness remains untouched, like an ocean remembering it was never the wave. The ego layer is the mind's masterpiece, a survival mechanism that turned consciousness into a character. It keeps the organism safe by pretending the story is real, by insisting that you must control, achieve, defend. Yet this control is mostly postscript. Research shows the brain initiates action fractions of a second before the self decides to act. The narrator merely takes credit after the fact. Free will, as we imagine it, is the mind's neatest editing trick. That realization can feel like groundlessness. If the eye isn't steering, what is? But look closer, and a strange peace appears. When the illusion of control fades, what's left isn't chaos, it's flow. Life begins to move through you with effortless intelligence. Choices still happen, but they're no longer weighed down by ownership. Mystics call this awareness the self beyond self, consciousness aware of itself. It doesn't need a name because it was never born. Every sensation, thought, and emotion arises within it like waves forming and dissolving in light. You can't observe this awareness the way you observe an object. You can only notice that it's what's noticing, the silent presence that has been there since the first moment of your life and will remain after the last. Here, perception collapses into pure being. The 7 layers don't disappear. They become translucent, recognized as expressions of the same awareness that sees through them. The senses, the emotions, the thoughts, the culture, the story, all shimmering patterns on the surface of something vast and still. And once this is glimpsed, the search ends not with an answer, but with recognition. Reality was never outside you. It was appearing as you all along. You've spent your entire life looking through layers you didn't know were there, each one trying to protect you from the immensity of what can't be understood, the raw, luminous fact of being. But when the layers thin, when the mind's scaffolding begins to fall, reality doesn't collapse into nothingness. It opens. The senses no longer seem deceitful. They become radiant instruments. Emotions lose their weight. They become movement in the field. Thoughts no longer bind you. They arise and dissolve like ripples on a mirror. and the you who tried to hold everything together realizes it was never holding anything at all. What remains is astonishingly simple: awareness, here, now, silent, unthreatened. The world keeps unfolding, but it's lighter somehow, as if existence has exhaled. You begin to sense that awakening isn't an achievement or a destination. It's the recognition that there was never a wall between you and reality, only reflections mistaken for glass, and that realization changes everything. So I'll leave you with one question. If all perception is filtered, who is the one perceiving right now? Let me know what you think in the comments. Your insight might spark someone else's awakening. If you'd like to keep exploring these deeper questions together, make sure to subscribe. Reality has many layers left to uncover. Thanks for watching.